Good evening, everybody. I hereby call the regular meeting of the Administrative Appeals Board of July 24th, 2024 to order. Board Secretary, please conduct the roll call.
Board Member Vasili.
Aye.
Board Member Hein. Here. Board Member Herman.
Present.
And Board Member Kareem.
Corn.
Present. And Vice Chair Parker.
Here.
5 members present.
Thank you. First of all, before we jump into the agenda, I'd like to officially welcome our newest board members. Board Member Laura Hein, welcome. Board Member Ed Corn, welcome. And Board Member Steve Herman. Steve was here last month, but we didn't get to officially welcome him. So welcome to all. It's nice to have a full and complete board again. So it's been a while. So welcome all. Okay, our first item is the acceptance of the agenda. The board can discuss and then may amend the order of the agenda. I would like to entertain a motion and a second for acceptance of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second. Board Secretary, please take the vote.
Board Member Hein.
Aye.
Board Member Vasili.
Aye.
Board Member Herman.
Aye.
Board Member Kareem.
Aye.
Vice Chair Parker.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
The next item is public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the board on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. 3 minutes will be assigned to each speaker. Although the board values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, the board generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Testimony for hearings will only be taken at the time of the actual hearing. Board Secretary, please begin the public comment period.
We do not have any registered voters for the public comment section.
Thank you. Next item is item number 4, the election of a board chairperson and vice chairperson.
Good afternoon, I'm City Clerk Brenda Free, and I will be conducting the nomination and the election procedure for your chair and your vice chair this afternoon. So I would now at this time call the nominations are in order for the office of chair. Are there any nominations for chair?
I nominate Patrick Vasili.
Any other nominations? There appear to be no further nominations for chair. Seeing none without objection, I'll consider the nominations closed. And the chair would be elected by unanimous consent. Do we have any nominations for the position of vice chair?
I nominate David Parker for vice chair.
Any further nominations? Is there anybody online? No. Okay. Seeing none without objection, I will close the nominations for vice chair as well, and we're considering you elected by anonymous consent. So at this time, I will call for a motion and a second to accept the election of Patrick Vasili as your chair and David Parker as the vice chair. Is there a second? A motion and a second, please.
A motion. Second.
Okay, Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Board Member Herman.
Aye.
Board Member Kareem.
Aye.
Board Member Hein.
Aye.
Vice Chair Parker.
Aye.
And Chair Vasili.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
At this time, we'll have chair to resume the administration of this meeting. Thank you all for your time.
Yeah, fine. She's real handy over here. So item 5.
Okay, so we'll start with item number 5, the appeal of the administrative citations B 9001 in the amount of 200 and B 9006 in the amount of 500 for the property located at 1077 South Riverside Drive for violations of Palm Springs Municipal Code 11.72.080 and 11.72090. Should I continue with that? Next item, item 5.
You're on item 5, yes.
Okay.
So then I do the oath. You say board secretary,
Board Secretary.
the blue part.
Next is item 5 concerning the property at 1077 Riverside. It is an appeal to the citations of B 9001, B 9006 for violations of the Palm Springs Municipal Code 11.72.080 and 11.72.090. Board Secretary, please ensure that the city staff and the appellant understands their testimony is under oath.
We do have signed affidavits from city staff and appellant. Anyone on Zoom who desires to testify under this appeal hearing, under the laws of perjury. If you choose to speak, you hereby accept and acknowledge that your testimony shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Staff, please present your report. Please state your name.
Good afternoon, my name is Dylan Gunzel. I'm the prosecution counsel for the city of Palm Springs. City staff has asked me to present staff report.
His mic is on.
Yeah, sorry.
So I'm sorry, what was your name again?
My name is Dylan Gunzel.
Dylan, thank you.
The appeal we have in question is for 1077 South Riverside Drive. It is for violations of the Palm Springs Municipal Code 11.72.080 and 11.72.090. The background on the case is a single family dwelling located at 1077 South Riverside Drive. It was constructed in 1949. And it was built with permit 3514 issued in 1948. It's approved 4-bedroom and a garage. And at the time of the building of the actual residence, the setbacks stipulated on the building permit were a 25-foot front, 10-foot side, 15-foot side, and a 10-foot rear. And in the packet, you will see the scan of the microfilm of permit 3514 issued on May 27th, 1948 for the construction of the home. Later in November 1962, the building permit B 4998 was issued to convert the existing garage of the residence into a bedroom, adding approximately 283 square feet of living area. And at the time of the 1962 permit, the setback requirements were 25-foot front, 10.5-foot side, and then a 10-foot rear. And on your packet, there's a scan of the microfilm of that building permit issued on November 19th. And in November 1970, the building permit A1223 was issued to connect the structure to city sewer system. The permit also provides the earliest known diagram of the structure that existed, which you'll see attached to your report as microfilm scanned, shows a diagram existing in 1970 as part of that permit. There's a historical image of the front of the property taken at some point in the 1970s. The date is uncertain, but is a front part of the property. And you're able to see that the west side of the house is above the fence line and the original angled roof with the attached. The next photo in the staff report is a current satellite image of the property, and the highlighted area is the original structure as built under the original 1948 construction, plus the 2 additional permits to alter the property. And this property has been continuously owned by a single family, the Dernbergers, since November 1970, and at the time of the issuance of that permit A1223. In September of 2023, the Code Compliance Department received a report concerning the structure on the property at the location, and the structures were allegedly in the side yard, failing to maintain the minimum setback clearances and encroaching on the neighbor's property. The reporting party requested an investigation, and so the city code compliance department went out to investigate. Code compliance supervisor at the time was David Riccio, and he was assigned to investigate. And then upon his initial investigation, found that there were structures maintained within the minimum side yard setbacks that were in violations of the city code. And so code case ZV 10230017 was opened in October of 2023. And a courtesy notice was sent via mail to the property owner, instructing them to remove all structures connected to the fence on the west side of the property. And in the photo, you'll see at the forward part of the photo, that is the covered carport garage area. And then the rear corrugated roof is the back patio. And it is taken from the neighbor's property, showing the unpermitted addition. You can notice that the sloped roof is the original roof, and then the flat roofs are the additions. The next image was taken from the street facing along the south, along the western property boundary, where the carport, garage, patio is actually constructed. And in November of 2023, Code Compliance Supervisor David Riccio conducted an inspection at the property, along with Building Inspector Marco Vello, where they documented the interior of the garage and carport and connected outdoor living area immediately to the south. It was represented to them at the time that the garage carport structure was part of the original construction, and that there weren't any zoning setback restrictions at that time. The assessment was then made that the garage carport structure would not need to be removed, as it was communicated to the owner. The next image is taken from the street front of the property facing south of the garage carport, clearly showing the separation from the existing structure's roof line and the connected unpermitted carport / garage. The reason it's being classified as a carport / garage is because it's not four enclosed walls. Some of the side walls are partially open, and then the front has a door on it. And the last image on that page is taken from the interior of the accessory patio awning structure to the rear of this garage carport. And following photos, another photo from that back patio. Next one is from inside of the unpermitted carport and garage, showing that there is actual ceiling trusses and posts, but there is no standing wall between the side and the fence, and it's open to the rear. The next photo is again from the interior of that. In December of 2023, a representative of the planning department reviewed the reported concerns regarding the structure, and after conducting research into the city's historical zoning codes and the property's original construction, it was determined that the accessory structures in question were unlikely to be part of the original construction or legally non-conforming. Based on these findings, a request was made to reopen the investigation and further assess the matter. So that's important because originally when David Riccio closed the case, it was based on representations that it was original. And then the planning department looked at it and determined that they could not find any permits for this type of construction, and it didn't follow the original floor plans from the 1970 permits. In January of 2024, the case file was transferred to Code Compliance Supervisor Mitch Nablon to continue the investigation. And in February 2024, an investigation into the permit history of the property found that the subject accessory structures were not a part of the original construction, and there was no record of a permit ever having been issued for the construction of the existing garage carport installed along the western property line. On February 14, 2024, Code Supervisor Mitch met with Mr. Joseph Dernberger, the property owner of the subject property, and inspected the structures and discussed the city's finding regarding the permit history of the property. And a courtesy notice was hand delivered to Mr. Dernberger on the property instructions for removing all the accessory structures that do not maintain the required setback distance along the west side yard. And the compliance deadline was from March 1st, 2024. The actual setback requirements were, at the time of construction, was 10 feet, 15 feet. And then in 53, it was amended to 10% of the overall aggregate width of the lot. For this lot, it was 105 feet, so the setback requirement was 10.5 feet. And then the current code is 15 feet setback, or sorry, 10 feet setback requirement. So there's been amendings to the code since the original construction, but none of them have been under 10 feet at any point. This next photo is an aerial satellite view showing on the right side is the original construction, which is where the little bubble dot is for the Google Maps. On the left side, the highlighted areas, the front portion, the larger portion is the garage carport, and the smaller southern portion is the accessory structure awning area that was shown in the earlier photos. On March 14, 2024, the subject property remained in violation. Consequently, a notice of violation letter was drafted and cited. The citation was issued to the property owner, Mr. Dernberger, and the notice and citation were sent via certified mail with compliance deadline for removal of March 28, 2024. And then on May 8, 2024, subject property remained in violation. And as a result of that, the second notice of violation was drafted and a second citation was issued to Mr. Dernberger. And the notice of citation were sent via certified mail with a compliance deadline of May 25th, 2024. The staff has analyzed the findings in the reports, and they determined the accessory structures along the west property line, including the garage carport and the accessory patio, were not a part of the original construction, and these structures were built without the necessary permits required by the city building and do not meet the minimum side yard setback clearances stipulated in the city's zoning code. Subsequent meetings with Mr. Dernberger have resulted in the following options to be presented to him to resolve the outstanding violations. First option is to remove all accessory structures currently installed that do not maintain the minimum required setback and along the western side of the property yard. And the second is to apply and obtain a variance from the planning commission through the codified process, allowing the currently unpermitted structure to remain as it currently exists or partially thereof. And should these violations not be corrected, the violation may be abated through the city's administrative proceedings, including but not limited to inspections and directions to remediate the violation, administrative citations, judicial process, or entry upon the property by city employees or contractors, subject to a warrant for the purposes of effecting those actions necessary. The property owner will be charged a fee equal to the actual costs incurred by the city to actually abate it, should he choose not to abate it himself. And the code section cited in the actual violations ending in 080, it simply states any violation of the zoning ordinance of the city is a public nuisance. And ending in 090 is any violation of the Palm Springs Building Code. Title 8 of the code, as amended, is a public nuisance. There are attached exhibits to the report: the courtesy notice on 10/1 by David Riccio, the courtesy notice issued on February 14th, and the notice of violation issued on March 14th. Copy of the first citation B9001 issued on March 14th, and a notice of violation issued on May 8th. And then the second citation of B9006 issued on that same date. And then photo scans of the city resolution number 257. Photo scans of Uniform Building Code 1952 edition. The reason that one is important is because the Uniform Building Code is only updated every so often, and it's usually every 10 years or so. But as stated, the setback requirements have never been less than 10 feet. They've always been pretty consistent. And then the statement from Mr. Riccio, the former code compliance supervisor, recanting the original determination that the structure is part of the original construction it was made an error based on representations to him. And that was one of the biggest issues, is that it was his understanding that this was original, but it turned out not to be after planning had done their investigation. And then the current city zoning regulations, which show that this type of residential R1 property has a minimum setback of 10 feet. And then the last is the assessor's recording sketch area table for that property. This property is at issue because, as you've seen in the photos, the actual posts for the unpermitted garage are right along the fence line, which is well within 10 feet. In fact, from the aerial view, the bush area along the western side of the property is the fence line. There's a fence underneath all those bushes. And so it does not meet the 10-foot setback requirement, doesn't meet the 10.5 foot of the 1950s and 60s. And it doesn't meet the current setback requirements. This is not a legal non-conforming use, because at the time this was constructed, based on the 1970 photo showing no alterations and the permits pulled at the time and the inspections that were likely to happen at that point, we know that the garage carport was constructed after 1970, but before the year 2000, because one of the photos that was included was 2000 and showed the carport accessory structure actually in construction or in existence. So for a period of about 30 years, somewhere in there, there was these structures were created. The case law on this type of thing says that a legal non-conforming use must be similar to an existing use at the time that the zoning code was amended or created. And even at the time that this home was built and all the subsequent decades after, there's no existing compliance or conforming construction for this due to the setback requirement. And that will conclude.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna open it up to the board right now if they have any questions.
I got a few. I think my first question is one of actually my first couple questions are ones of ignorance. And council, probably a question for you. I don't know, as long as I've been here, we haven't had a situation like this where it's related to building code. So my first reaction was, is this the right board or venue to hear this process? Is building code part of the municipal code, or is municipal code sort of the overarching part of building code?
Yeah, I did take a look at the code, and this is within your jurisdiction.
Okay,
And Abe did tell me that he wasn't aware, for as long as he's been serving, that you had received one of these kinds of appeals, but it is within your jurisdiction.
okay. And then my next question was, do a dump download for me on conforming versus non-conforming. Because to me, the term legal non-conforming is a mismatch, and so I want to understand what we're referring to.
So a conforming use would be anything within the legal guidelines of the zoning code. So anything that's 10 feet or at the time that it was actually built
Would be conforming.
would be conforming, correct? So if the code was 10 feet back in the 1943, when this was built, and the code changes to 5 feet, but there's no alterations that are being done, no permits pulled, then that would be a legal non-conforming use because the code changed around it.
And so it was sort of grandfathered in.
Essentially,
Okay.
yes. It's a legal term of art for grandfathering, but it's very specific to building issues. One of the most glaring examples is fire sprinklers. Nowadays, every single new residential development must have fire sprinklers. But these buildings, I mean, most of the homes in Palm Springs that are pre-existing don't have them. So they're not requiring people to rip up their walls and install them. However, if somebody's doing a full remodel and pulling permits, then they'd be required to retrofit that stuff.
Okay,
Because then that grandfathered status then lapses or drops off when you're then changing it. The only things you can do to a legal non-conforming use is regular maintenance. Any alterations, additions, changes, removals, it automatically removes that.
and then everything would be needed to be updated at code.
Under the
at
current
that
code,
point.
correct.
Okay. I do have another question. I think you stated in your testimony that the original permit was in 1949. And at the time, the setback for the site was 10 feet.
Yes, it was 10 feet and 15 feet, which it just means that one side had to be 15, the other side had to be 10.
Okay,
I don't think it differentiated on the right side or left side. It just, there had to be an aggregate of 25 feet in sums of 10 or 15 on each side.
okay. Because I saw some information in here about questioning, could there have been a permit that was issued and it has been lost because it was so long ago? Is that even possible?
So for the 1940s construction, it's possible as far as that goes because it's all microfilm. There's nothing that's digitized. That's what the scans are. But based on the photos and the evidence, this garage carport wasn't even constructed until post 1970. Even if we, between 70 and 2000, even if we split that 1985 about, all the records from that, there aren't any records that are showing that they're missing. Is it always a possibility? Sure, but it's the more modern it gets, the less and less likely it is.
So I guess that leads to my next question, and then I'll let my colleagues go, because I don't want to, you probably have some of the same questions. What, I don't understand when the first officer was out there, David Riccio. If in 49, the side setback was 10 feet and the owner of the property told him that it was there since the house was built, why would he say that it was okay? He didn't have to do anything about it.
Well, at that time,
That's part of the confusion, it seems like in this case.
and that's definitely a bad fact to the city that Mr. Riccio just made a mistake by relying on representations without actually confirming those things. But at the end of the day, even if it's a mistake of a statement of a law, I mean, we're not infallible. We can make mistakes.
Sure,
And that's what he, in his letter of recanting that statement, was that it was a mistake to allow that. And also, I mean, code compliance, they know the code as well as they can, but they're not planning people. They don't measure setbacks. They don't have the permits. These are all different departments that are designed to talk to each other, but sometimes the right hand doesn't always talk to the left. And that's why when planning reviewed it, they showed, well, there's an obvious error here. And that's why the case was reopened. So it was ultimately a mistake made by him to take it at face value. But the documentary evidence in the city records that we have didn't show that there was any records from 1970, well, even 1940s to today. There was any records for that structure. Also based on the construction, I mean, it has to post date the 70s based on the materials and everything that we use. So
okay,
And for the board's education, the burden of proof is on the appellant. So when we're talking about legal non-conforming issues, the idea that there might have been a record that's lost doesn't matter. If the appellant doesn't produce such a record, then you can't rely on the possibility that there could be one because they have the burden of proof.
yeah, but it sounds like even if there was an application, it wouldn't have been granted because the setback at the time when the house was built was 10 feet from the side, so, okay. I have no other questions.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
What prompted the investigation of this structure?
So the neighbor began building their wall on the property line. And that was really what prompted it because, you know, whenever there's a wall being constructed, generally neighbors have to talk to each other if you're gonna go right on the property line. And then they notice, well, your structure comes right up to my property line. And so that was reported to the city, and that's when the city went out to investigate it and kind of kick this thing off. I mean, this is pretty common amongst lot line disputes because as much as, you know, we like to think that the house we're buying is exactly what we're getting, surveys need to be done for true due diligence, but I think 99.99% of us aren't going to do a survey on a house we're building. So that only comes after the fact that we kind of discover this type of stuff.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question. Mr. Gunzel, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Gunzel, you've referred a couple of times to representations that were made to the initial inspector that the carport and the other structure were part of the original construction of the home. Who made those representations? Was it the appellant that made those to him?
From my understanding, that was conversations between the appellant and Mr. Riccio at the time of that inspection, November of 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You don't have any more questions?
I just thought of one, sorry.
Okay.
I do have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
I think in part of the appellant's response and their information, the information that was submitted. I don't know if this comes into play. I just want to ask the question. There were pictures of other similar things like that in the existing neighborhood. Does the city know if that exists, or have you had a chance to review those photos? And if so, how does that weigh into something like this?
Well, as far as non-conforming uses, I mean, or violations of zoning codes or any of that stuff. I mean, we don't live in George Orwell where we can kind of see where everything's happening at all times.
Right.
So code compliance in general is going to be reactive. So whenever there's an issue pointed out, then it gets put on the radar and it gets dealt with. But generally, I mean, this is a pretty common thing that I've seen where you start pointing fingers at everyone else saying, well, they're doing it too. And it's,
Why can't I? Yeah.
and it kind of goes back to what all of our mothers used to say is, if everyone jumps off a bridge, are you gonna do the same? It's
Yeah.
like, it doesn't necessarily make it any better. And it just shows that we have work to do, honestly, but that's, pointing the finger at somebody else, it doesn't really absolve yourself of liability.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we covered that.
Has the owner, the appellant lived in the home continuously for the family?
From my understanding, that's where he was born. I don't really have any other background aside from what he said. I don't know, like.
It was never used as a rental or.
Not that I know of, but I think their family's been in there since the 70s, I believe. So I don't know, I mean, that would be more of a question for the appellant, but based on the statements that I read in their response, that he's lived there his whole life.
Okay, so basically what you said is unless someone complains about it, you guys aren't gonna know about it.
Yeah, and sometimes the squeaky wheel disagrees, so we deal with this all the time, so.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to open the appealing here to the appellant is invited to speak. To speak for up to 10 minutes. Any members of the public who desire to speak on this appeal hearing shall have up to 3 minutes to speak. If any member of the public testifies, the appellant will be invited to provide a rebuttal for up to 2 additional minutes. The appellant, please state your name for the record and you can begin.
Joseph Dernberger. Joseph Dernberger. Okay. So here we go. Just to say thank you all for being here. I appreciate your time
Thank you.
and efforts. The way the property looks now looks nothing like the pictures that you have been looking at. It looks good. There's a hedge, there's ficus, there's a partial wall built in front. I cannot see my neighbor's yard. He cannot see my yard. There's a hedge there. So just so we're clear on that. This should be a simple case, I would say, but it's going to get complicated. This carport structure should be grandfathered in. It's been there 40+ years that I know of. It's a detached carport. It has 8 legs and a roof. In my neighborhood, there's plenty of them. I put into thing 30+ photos of carports in buildings that have less than 10 feet in my neighborhood. And 10 feet in my neighborhood is like a fairy tale. So, but this is not a building. This is an accessory structure. It is a detached carport. It can be built to property line. It's actually, the legs are 3 feet back from the property line. So my neighbor in his wall building, he has no problem putting his wall up next to my carport. He's been saying he has a problem. He's been misrepresenting that he has a problem put there because he doesn't want my carport there. The fence line's there. In the photos, you can clearly see he has access to go down the property line and build his wall. So this 10-foot setback that we're talking about, it doesn't apply to accessory structures. It doesn't apply to carports. So that right now, so we're talking about a ticket. We have a citation in the 2 violations. There's a 10-foot That's one of the citations is a 10-foot setback, which this structure doesn't require. It's an accessory structure. The other is a permit. Now, this thing's 40+ years old that I know of. The family home has been my home. It's been in my family since 1948, originally built. You guys were asking the question. So I'm born and raised there. I bought it from my family and I raised my children there and so on. So we go. So the permits, I was told originally by David Riccio and Marco Vella when they came out to inspect the property initially right away. David walks in, he looks at the place and he says, this has been here. He said, this is old enough. And he looks around. Marco went around, he looked at it. He's the building and safety guy. He looked at it, said, this thing's fine. It's built safe, no problem. We looked at some other structures in the back, my patio cover and my wall. My wall's a little too tall. I told him that I would bring that down when my neighbor built his wall because his elevation is 1.5 feet taller than mine and I could get the height and I could even remove the fence. It's not a big deal. The patio structure in the back, I said, if there's an issue with that, we'll deal with that when it comes. But mostly it was the carport in the front that we're trying to deal with. The permits. Now, this thing's that I know of 40+ years old. It's been told it's grandfathered in. I've been told permits could be lost. They had fires at the city. It may or may not have needed a permit. I mean, the permits go round and round on a structure's old. That's why they call things grandfathered in, because nobody really knows. You can't say for sure. And David Riccio, because I asked him, I said, well, what's that mean? Old enough, long enough? And we spent about a half an hour talking and he explained a lot to me. And he was very knowledgeable and informative. And he said, listen, we need to be 110% sure if we're going to make you tear down part of your home. And he said, this is part of your home. And he made it clear. This structure here is part of your home. You use it, you've been here, it's been here forever. And nobody can really tell that it didn't need a permit. It did need a permit. I mean, it was just, he was very clear on that this is grandfathered in, it's been here, it's not a problem. So that was what we had with that. So let's go to February 14th. Mitch called me, code compliance officer, said, basically called me on the phone, said I need to tear down my carport. Well, I told him it's already been determined. He said, no, you need to tear it down. And he came by later that day and he gave me a citation letter and said, I need to tear it down, no options. We kind of talked, went around a little bit. I told him about David and he said, no, it doesn't matter. He doesn't work there anymore. I'm the guy, you need to tear it down. So I said so. I said, it just didn't seem right to me, but he asked me, did I have it in writing? I said, at the time I didn't. I said, no, he said, well, you need to tear it down. So I said, okay. So a couple weeks later, I started kind of tearing it down a little bit, cleaning things up, looking at it. And my neighbor came over and he actually told me it wasn't him who called the code compliance and this and that, but he gave me some emails saying, in the emails he gave me, it said that it was safe, did not need to be removed, and that, it had been there. And I said, wow, I got it in writing. So I thought, no problem, I'll call Mitch. I called Mitch. He said, nope, doesn't matter. Need to tear it down, no options. And I said, man, this doesn't sound right. I got two officers from the same department telling me two different things. And, so I said, okay, so let's move on. So I said, well, I think we should have a hearing on this. And he says, okay, well, I have to cite you to have a hearing. I said, okay, well, cite me. So he cites me, I pay the fines, I sign up for a hearing. Well, the hearing ends up being a phone hearing through a citation center, processing center. And I said, this isn't right. I can't present all this stuff at a phone hearing. So I ended up calling the city manager, calling Jeff Ballinger, calling everybody I can, saying, how can I resolve this issue? I went to, and then I found out, hey, he said I could only have that hearing. Come to find out later through my process of asking everybody about this stuff, I had other options. I had options with the planning department. I could have done this, this, and this. I had options with the hearing. I could be right here. So I signed up for this hearing. Well, when I signed up for this hearing, Mitch and one of the bosses in there, they weren't very happy. So I don't know what exactly, I couldn't understand why. And so it just seemed very, you know, why, it's a carport, why is everybody so up in arms about this stupid carport? Well, later on, before I got my, this is important, after I got my first citation and I had my hearing, I was told by everybody that everything would stop. All the fines, all the fees, I wouldn't have to tear it down until I have this hearing, which makes sense. Well, before the first hearing I was supposed to have, 8 days before that, Mitch wrote me a second citation for $500. I said, man, what's this? You know, I got a citation, everything's supposed to stop. And he told me I needed to tear down my carport. And I said, yeah, I haven't even had my hearing yet. So I said, this is wrong. This is, you know, he's messing with my due process. I just want to have my hearing and let us decide what I need to do after that. I felt that was very vindictive and bullying and biased. And I just didn't appreciate it. That we just couldn't go through the process and have this hearing here today. So, so after I requested a bunch of emails from the city and public record. Well, then I found out why this was such a big deal. Why everybody's just up in arms about me tearing down my building. On February 13th, the day before Mitch came out and gave me the citations letters, my neighbor, Marcel Fontaine, threatened to get a legal action against the city if they didn't make me remove my carport. So when Mitch came out, he wasn't there doing an inspection and it wasn't fair. They were there because they were getting threatened by Marcel, my neighbor, to get sued over if they didn't get my carport removed. So I think his judgment and his determination was 100% biased. It was self-serving, for the city. So after I get these emails, I find out much more. My neighbor Marcel, the whole time, has been complaining about this carport. He's been telling them that he could not build his wall because of my carport, which is untrue. There's no reason he couldn't have built his wall. He had concerns over it at one point, which I gave him a signed letter, a release of liability. If anything happened to my property, no problem. He can build his wall. Well, that wasn't good enough. He just doesn't want it there. He told me that because my carport's there, he stands to lose $200,000 if he ever went to sell his house. And that was, I thought that's crazy, whatever. And that was the last conversation I had with him. So basically he'd been running around with his drone, taking illegal pictures, which are in the evidence. He's playing chief investigator on this case. Am I speaking too loud?
Almost. No,
Five
you got
seconds.
I'm sorry.
5 seconds left.
Oh, 5 seconds. He's playing chief investigator on the case. And the recantment from David Riccio came 8 days prior to this hearing. And as I've been bullied and things have happened through the case, David Riccio actually still works with the city at city engineering. And I don't know why he would do that. I know there, mistakes are
We
made,
need to stop.
but that some things are in question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now I'd like to open this up for discussion and any additional questions from the board.
We do have public comment for
Oh, we
this
do?
item.
Is there
Okay,
any
good.
questions for me?
This would be the time that we take them.
Okay,
There probably will be, yes.
if there's any, currently right now, if there's any public comment, we'll hear it now. You can work on, but we'll call you back if you need to move by any comment. Thank you.
We have Terry Klein.
Please state your name.
Terry Klein, resident of Palm Springs. I happen to live in the neighborhood, matter of fact, adjoining property to Mr. Dernberger. I've lived here, my wife and I, for 15 years. We came here from Colorado. And one of the first things I wanted to do when I came here was put a shade cloth thing over my driveway. Well, I came here to get a permit. They said, no, we don't give permits to do that because they're dangerous if the wind comes up. And I'm like, well, gosh, in my neighborhood, I can count 20 of them. Easy. Well, those are grandfathered in. So my question is, what are dates for grandfathers? Is it 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 5 years? All I want to do is improve my property by putting that up. I came to get a permit, they wouldn't get it. So I call a an awning company, professional company to install it. They asked, where do you live? I told them, they said, we won't even give you an estimate because Palm Springs won't give you a permit. Give us a permit. I said, well, they're all over the place, even downtown, commercial places, so. Give me a guideline what grandfathered in is. He has a structure that's been there for at least 40 years, has proven itself to bear the weather and everything else. It hasn't blown off or killed anybody. And so I just wanna know, do you guys have a definitive answer to what grandfathered in is? A period of time. I take it that's a no.
It's
The
up
board
to you
doesn't answer.
If you want me to respond, but otherwise I just keep going with the other public comments.
Please.
Please do.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You want me to respond?
Yeah.
So there's no definitive period of time, because it's a rolling time. It's about what you want to do. That's the first step, defining what that is. The second step is there something in the code establishing a requirement? In this case, you mentioned there's a prohibition. I haven't reviewed the code myself, so I can't tell you what's in there. The third step is for the individuals who you say have one, if they predate the day, month, and year that prohibition became effective in the code, then they are quote unquote grandfathered, so long as they don't enlarge it, adjust it, move it for all time. There's no expiration date on that. However, if you wanted to do that after it's been added to the code, now you're subject to the code. That is the answer.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So it sounds to me.
I did I am concerned about this drone, and using drones, I live right there.
Well-
This is public comment.
This is public comment right now. If anyone else would like to speak,
I have a couple more. Steve Crittenden.
you
I'm
have
not sure
3
if I said
minutes
your
to
name.
speak. Please, tell us your name.
Hello, my name is Steve Crittenden. I'm a general contractor and have been in construction most of my life. I've known Joey Dernberger since the late 70s, as our families have been friends for decades. So with that said, I have visited his home for decades and still do to this day. This neighbor has had a lot of things to say about his home that has basically stayed the same over these many decades, with the exception of him actually making it visually better. So Joey has had me take a look at some of these complaints from his neighbor, particularly the carport area. As I inspected the carport area, it is very simple to see that obviously it has stood the test of time, being well over 30 years old. As a contractor, I can tell you that many structural codes, property setbacks, etc., have changed over the years. But I have never encountered homeowners that have been asked to remove or alter structures that have been there for decades. This usually only occurs when we pull permits to remodel. And with that, many of the setbacks are allowed to remain as they were, legal at times, with a minor variance application like you've stated. I say this because once again, this area of discussion has been like it is now for as long as I can remember. When his neighbors purchased the property next door to Joey's home, it was built the same way it is today. So when he purchased the home, he obviously did not have a problem with the neighborhood or the neighbors. I am saying this because I believe this would set a huge precedent if cities allowed people to buy a home in a neighborhood and then start demanding that their neighbors who have lived in that home for decades upgrade their home to whatever standards they want. There are many homes in Palm Springs, across our country, and the rest of the world that might not meet today's standards, but have once again stood the test of time. So it hasn't been mentioned yet, but this neighbor has literally gone on the attack. He actually asked me to give him a price to build this wall, how I would build the wall. And at that time, there was no problem at all. This is all about him wanting Joey to upgrade his home so his value will go up. That's all this is about. This man used to come to Joey's home, have dinner, hang out in the same area we're talking about. Never had a problem until he saw his value as he wants to sell, depreciating because he believes his home is not up to his standard. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you.
Wendeley Walker?
Yeah.
Wendeley.
Come on in. You have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Gwendolyn Walker. I'm actually a commercial property manager in the healthcare campuses, Desert Oasis Healthcare, Kaiser Building downtown. And I've been a longtime friend of them and their family. My question is, so if his home was owned by his mother in 1948, it was actually his maternal's mother, right? So this has gone through and now he owns it. So it's passed through the generations. Things have, evolved. You're saying the applicant is supposed to have the permits. However, the city doesn't have the permits because of fires and things being misplaced. How can you also expect a home that has gone through many generations from 1948 to still have, these permits in place? I find that just to be very one-sided, You're not allowed to you're okay to not have them. But here's someone who's owned a home since, I don't know if I could find all my permits for my house, I've owned my house for 10 years. So that just kind of and to go back to Marcel, I dated Marcel when he was friends with them and would always come over and liked them. And then he didn't like them anymore. And then everything started. And it wasn't my fault.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Lori, good?
Please state your name and your 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name's,
Yes.
my name is Lori Good. I live at 1077 South Riverside with Joey. We did raise our children there. David, we all know David and Marco came out and they viewed the house. I was there. They looked at the structure. Joey did not tell them it was there, since it was that was part of the original structure. That was never said. The word grandfather is what I heard, and it was, it's, you look at it, it's been here for a long time. And then they looked to see that it was safe and it wasn't gonna cause harm to anybody. And I was talking to him about these types of issues and stuff because, I'm living this right now. And I said, well, the city, they're gonna tell us to tear part of our home down. I mean, that's kind of upsetting. And he says, well, we have to be 100% sure before we can tear somebody's home down. I mean, they're not gonna do it because of a maybe or a possibility, or maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. The city has to know before they can demand us to tear down part of our home. The only part of our home that actually gives us shade in the afternoon. We talked about the back patio and the wall, and that was all going to be addressed once the wall was up to get the elevations right. Then Mitch shows up, gives us the writing in February, and this is the part that really bothers me. Well, there's so many things that bother me. This bothers me because he asked us if we had it in writing, when at the time we didn't, but he did. He had it in writing. He was trying to find out if we did. And that is just not, this, the city, these are, I mean, our taxpayers pay them, our taxes pay them anyways. We went for the appeal and we got it when we were in the appealing process. And we were in the code office and we were talking to Mitch. And Mitch told us if it doesn't matter about the appeal, the fines are gonna keep coming down the pipeline. We're gonna keep getting fined. He's gonna come after us, whatever is whatever is determined, doesn't matter. They are gonna, our structure has to come down. And he was right, because guess what? Fines kept coming. They kept coming. So now we're,
5 seconds.
oh, okay. Well, my neighbor is flying drones over. They're illegal. They're in there's a picture of my house. The city, it seems to be letting him harass us. The city is helping him harass us. And it's illegal and it's very, very irresponsible. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do have Marcel on Zoom to speak.
About 3 minutes.
Hold on one second.
Sorry.
See there?
Yeah.
Okay, Marcel, you have 3 minutes.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so members of the board, city staff, good evening. My name is Marcel Fontaine. I live next door to the appellant at 1047 South Riverside. In May of 2023, we called the city and asked what was required to build a block wall. As directed, we had a survey done and applied and paid for the required permit. Preparations involved removing old overgrown hedges, and in doing so, we exposed the structure next door. Building and safety informed us that the structure was too close and may require additional engineering for our wall. This delayed issuing our permit. After some back and forth with the city, we were eventually given the go-ahead, but after the first 18 feet, our builder had to stop due to safety concerns. Code enforcement officers first visited the appellant around this time and were told the structures dated back to 1949. That information is not factual. Photos and the construction materials used prove that the buildings were built much more recently. Even though the house next door has been in the same family for generations, nobody seems to know when they were built or who built them. What we do know is that they weren't built with permits, they are not built to code, they are not grandfathered in. They are preventing us from building a wall without incurring additional delays and labor costs. Over the last year, I have followed every directive that the city has asked me to. We've spent roughly $6,000 so far, and we don't have a wall. Over the course of the last 10 months, city officials have been misled many times. The age of the buildings have been misrepresented many times. Promises to clear the setback, if given more time, have not been honored. This appeal seems to be just another attempt to delay. Hiding the buildings with trees and camouflage netting seems to be the only change we've noticed. This isn't a vacant tool shed. This is a multi-use inhabited space. It's a carport, it's a workshop, it's a sports bar, and a living room at times. There's a classic car in there, which means gasoline, a fridge, a sink, a bar, flat screen TVs. There are electrical junction boxes in the ceiling. There are extension cords and string lights running in every direction. It is an indoor-outdoor living space in use multiple times a week. Swamp coolers and propane heaters make it comfortable for guests to congregate under year-round. Setbacks exist for a reason. If these buildings are allowed to stay, we won't have the privacy or safety the setback should provide. It is irresponsible to want to keep this structure in its current location. Claiming it'll be a lot of work to remove should not be an excuse for allowing it to stay. The buildings are a fire risk and a liability. I'm asking this board to please deny the appeal, and I'm asking the city of Palm Springs to please see to it that the dismantling of this structure commence immediately. not in 30 days, not in a week, but starting tomorrow. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and allowing this testimony to be on the public record.
Thank you. Now I'd like to open this up to discussion for the board and any additional questions.
Chairman, you want to ask the appellant if he has any rebuttal? first?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Rebuttal?
Yes, you can come on back up.
Please let him know how much time you have.
You have an additional 2 minutes. Thank
2
you.
minutes. I would just like to say that the setback requirements, like we said, we're talking about a ticket situation, a citation. That's what we're talking about. The 10-foot setback requirement doesn't apply to an accessory structure. It doesn't apply to a carport. Carports can be built up to property line, which mine's not. The posts are 3 feet away. As far as variances were concerned, rebuttal from the attorney. I was told possibly I could get a variance, and I went to planning about that. They told me it was gonna cost $7,000 and there's no guarantee. Mitch actually told me, and people in the code compliance office, that even if I got the variance through the planning, they wouldn't approve it. They said, you know, don't waste your time. It's not gonna get approved, $7,000. And I had no reason not to believe him, even though they gave me the option from them saying I could get a variance, but I wasn't gonna get it. He told me I'm not gonna get it. He's told me I'm gonna get fines. He's been true to his word. They have no, I went to every part of the city, planning, building, city manager, Sheffield, trying to resolve this issue, to get variances to, I was willing to tear out the side down of this, the front down that. There was no, I couldn't do anything. They would not work with me whatsoever. They just wanted it gone. And it was because my neighbor just wants it gone. There's no other reason. It can be there. It's legal. I feel it was built in good faith. And it should be able to remain to stay. Permits, like I said, your guys said themselves, it's possible. We don't know. The thing's old. That's why you say grandfather in. It's possible the permits got lost. So got my 2 minutes?
Yeah, you're right there.
Okay,
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Should we have him still?
You have a question?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm gonna open it up now to the board if they have any questions of the appellant.
I do have a question. I'm looking at these photos in great detail.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I am understanding this correctly. Is this plywood along here that I'm seeing?
You're talking about where it's open to the roof?
Yes.
That's a faux wall.
Okay.
It's not even a real wall. It is like T111, but it's because there's a fence behind that.
Okay.
And then the bushes were, and the shade cloth was there for privacy, and the bushes used to come and push through the carport. So that was put there for basically aesthetics, just to keep the bushes from coming into my carport.
Okay.
The sides are open and the front's open. The garage door, that was put there for security. The front's open, the sides are open, and the back, and you can see it looks like plywood, but those are actually gates in the back. That whole back part, there's one, you can see there's an open door. There's actually 2 other gates there that you could actually drive through a car if you wanted into the backyard.
Okay, and then I have another question. Is this air ducting right here that I'm seeing in the picture?
No,
No, what?
it's a beam,
That's a beam.
I think.
Okay.
It's hard to see from here, but there's no air duct.
Okay, and then I do have one more question. I don't know if this is out of place for me to ask this, but I sense a lot of emotion on both sides. And I know both neighbors are very concerned about their property value and their home and everything. And I'm just gonna ask this question. What would it take between the 2 neighbors to bring resolution to this? I don't know if I'm allowed to ask that.
You can ask, you're asking me, right?
I mean.
I was willing from day one. I told my neighbor I would help him build a wall. I have a hauling company. I could take all of his bushes away, trash, free dirt. I sent my friend Steve over there to go help him with a wall. I'm open to whatever. But it seems as though that after he got involved with the city, there's no other options. I mean, it's full bore or nothing. And I was willing to do compromise, anything I could do, but I've not been given the opportunity to do that. I can't just, they said, I said, can I just pull it back 2 feet, 5 feet, whatever? And it was all just tear it down or nothing. There was no compromise whatsoever from anybody. I'm willing to compromise. I was willing to take off 10 feet off the front. Anything I could do to not tear down the whole thing, I was willing to do. But nobody would compromise with me. I went to the city and I got a 5-foot setback from planning. And they said, you can do this 5-foot setback. I said, hey, that might work. I got a friend that's an engineer. We'll go get this done. I said, but first here, put it in writing. Let me take it over the code compliance. And they said, took it to Mitch and he said, nope, can't do it. And so I was like, well, after so long of getting, kind of pushed back and realizing, hey, there's something else going on here. I knew there was something else going on, but I didn't know exactly what until we got the emails.
And then I do have one more, I don't know if this is a question, more of a comment. I mean, I see the photos that other neighbors and other houses have this issue as well too. And I don't know if this is something the board would be willing to do, but I'm gonna put it out there because we gotta be fair. We go on a field trip and look at this, we can't do that. We're not allowed to do that, to look at what other people have done in the neighborhood. Okay, all right, I just wanted to verify that. Okay, thank you.
I do have a question.
Sure.
It's the question that no one's asked. So do you have, since it has been in your family, has anyone given you a date in which that structure had been built?
No, my father's passed away, mother's passed away, grandparents, they're all gone. I have brothers and sisters. I remember the shade structures out there when I was a little kid. And, that's as much as I can remember, so let's just say it was 1980, or whenever. It's 40+ years ago. I mean, what is, like my neighbor Terry said, what is the date that we need to talk about here for grandfathered in? No one seems to want to give us a date that is acceptable. We don't know, but we know that it's 40+ years ago for sure, that I know. And I've never said that it was original construction. I never maintained that. I was said it's there, it's been there. I believe it was built legally. I also have issue with this reactive thing from the city that the code compliance only comes out when someone's called. That sets a precedent towards people doing whatever they want. A contractor goes out and sees my grandma or somebody and says, hey, I'll build you, I want to get a carport. Your contractor goes out and says, I'll build you a carport, builds a carport. They think it's all on up and up. The contractor went to the city, got a permit, or he didn't. They come back, carport's built, everybody's happy. Now, 40 years later, we're sitting here looking for permits. And it's just unreasonable to think that the code compliance drives down my street all the time. They drive by all these structures all the time, and they are reactive and not proactive. They never had an issue with this before. And now they have issue because my neighbor has issue. And it's a bad policy. It encourages people to not get permits, because why should you? If everybody can just go out and build their things and do what they want, and they don't, only if their neighbor calls, and then they're in trouble. It's a bad precedent. And I think it's encouraged by this policy that they have of a reactive policy, not a proactive policy. And then, maybe this, maybe that. I mean, they don't have these same policies in Florida. They don't have these same policies in other places, and they don't have these same problems.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
If I'm looking at this photo correctly, there's no setback on your other side, is that correct?
Which photo are you looking at?
The original garage.
The original garage?
Can I come around? Sorry, I just can't see it.
This one.
Which one are you talking about?
On that side?
On that side, there's the posts are where the setback is, and they're back here. This is cantilevered out.
Right.
And the same with this.
Right, so you abut the hedge in between your property with the neighbor on the other side.
Yeah, there's a porch. That's a
Okay,
porch.
and you have no problems?
We have no problems whatsoever. There's a hedge there too. I mean, you can't see anything. It's just, it's always been that way.
Okay, any other questions?
I do. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
After you.
I have one question. You mentioned a couple of times that, the setback requirements don't apply to accessory structures.
Yes,
What do you base that on?
that's in the municipal code. Accessory structures aren't. What they're saying 10 foot is for building, you're building your
No,
house, right?
I understand.
Okay, so accessory structures like patios, covers, carports, are their accessory structures.
Carports, do you consider this a carport?
Yes, or a shade cover, what you call it, both, yes.
Okay,
And so they don't require the same setbacks as 10 feet.
so the other structures in your neighborhood that you are observing presumably also violate these setback requirements, those are accessory structures as well?
Yes,
So you're saying everybody's in compliance?
they're either, not to today's standards possibly, I don't know the laws on that, but I know that they're either were built legally or they're grandfathered in. And yes, they're fine. There can't be that many of them in my neighborhood and not to be fine. I mean,
Thank you.
Okay.
So I do have one question, because you brought it up, and thanks for mentioning that. So you are considering this a carport, right?
Yes.
Most people don't entertain or live in a carport. And looking at the picture, I'm just playing the devil's advocate here, looking at the picture, there is a swamp cooler set up there, there's a TV, there's electrical, there's front patio furniture out there, there's a heater.
That's the patio.
That's the patio, okay.
That's
So that isn't the structure that's abutting to the neighbors.
the
Hedge, the one that's,
The patio covers actually go into the fence line also. And then the carport area, that shade structure, the wood part is where the car's at.
So,
Okay, and
so
then there's.
what you're calling the patio sits behind the carport,
Yes,
right? So it's
yes.
just
Here's
a
that
patio. Here's the
And
carport.
I believe that is also an issue in this appeal. I believe the violations are for all of the structures that impede on the setback,
Right,
including the patio.
yeah.
And the patio covers are detached accessories. They don't fall under the 10-foot rule.
got it, thank you. Any other questions? Okay,
I do, I have one, sorry. I guess it's for the city, so is that this whole thing that we have questions about accessory units, accessory dwelling units? I'm not certain I said that right.
No.
Accessory units, sorry,
Accessory structures.
is that the case?
Well, so
The setback?
this is a question, the discussion for the board right now, so
Oh,
we'll hold off on that.
all right, sorry.
So, thank you very much. So now we can go into
Board discussion.
board discussion. So I'll open it up to the board that would want to talk among themselves.
Okay, so there's my question.
Well, I'd have to look up the actual code, because that wasn't in any of the materials, but as far as like this, we'll separate the patio from the carport right now. From the photos on the carport, I believe the one you're referencing, the top photo is the patio, but this is the carport
Right.
where there's electrical, there's a counter, like a workshop type thing. That's what and it's also attached to the roof line. I mean, the aerial photos show that it's mended together. It's not
Sure.
offset. Generally, when you have an accessory dwelling, it's not, or sorry, an accessory structure, it's not actually physically attached in more than one point. Usually like a patio, it's accessory because it's attached just at the roof line, but everything else is free floating. Based on the aerial photos, I mean, this thing has electrical, it's got a fridge, a sink, like all these other things that it's not really a carport at that point. So the classification of this as a carport rather than shop, garage, or garage carport, that's why we're calling it that, is because it's kind of a hybrid. I mean, it's kind of a garage with the door and everything in it, and the electrical and the workshop, but it's kind of a carport because it's a little bit open on the sides. It's the walls don't go all the way up. And so I don't agree with the classification that the garage carport is just an accessory structure because it has so many other things that are not just an accessory. I mean, a gazebo is an accessory structure, but if you're gonna run power to a gazebo or water to a gazebo, you're gonna have to pull permits and run those utilities. And the whole argument that, you know, this was, that they may have permits, really hasn't been any proof of that other than it could have been. I mean, that's why I'm saying it could have been, because I definitively cannot under oath say, oh yeah, no way. There's always a possibility. I mean, I could get struck by lightning when I walk out of here. So there's always a possibility of anything, but I'm just saying that they have the burden of proof of showing that the permits were issued or they didn't require a permit. And they're saying that it's an accessory dwelling. I don't agree with that because the actual garage has utilities and all these other services in it.
Let me ask a follow-up question to that. So let's say hypothetically, the city's approach about a permit for an accessory dwelling. That would then, based on what you're telling me, not fall to the under the 10-foot line, right?
Well, I'd have to
Setback, thank you.
Is there, the requirements are under the R1 code, and I don't know if that was attached on it, the R1 code, but I don't know that the accessory dwellings was attached to the packet. No, it's not on the main building standards. I'd have to look into that to see or code is
Now,
here and ask them.
what qualifies as an accessory? What qualifies as part of the house? I mean, if I put up a tent and I run electricity into it in my house, does that make it part of my house?
No, because tents are considered like,
Or a more permanent thing? Just
yeah, I
because-
mean, tents don't have foundations, don't have concrete poured, lag bolts. It's not physical construction.
No, I understand that, but we need to, I think we need to see the code or actual language of the code.
If I can help. So my name is Mitch Knapp, and I'm the code compliance supervisor for the city of Palm Springs. And so it is included in staff report, I believe it's attachment 10, where it's the excerpt from our city's zoning code, which talks about property development standards in R1 residential zones.
What page is that, Mitch? Sorry.
Let me just.
Page, begins on page 30.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
So again, that's the city's codified zoning that talks about the development for an R1 residential zone. And the question of whether, you know, the city has defined temporary accessory structures and accessory structures. And then within the city's development guidelines, 920201, it talks about permitted uses in side yards, where it says one-story buildings, including accessory buildings not exceeding 15 feet in height, shall have a side yard on each side of not less than 10% of the width of the lot. And so there is a minimum required setback in the property development standards of 10 feet. And specifically for accessory buildings, there's that percentage, which is, you know, it's either 10 feet or whichever is less.
So
Additionally, it's also referenced specifically for garages and carports, because I know there's been some communication, there's been some discussion about what the structure is. And there's some language in there that talks about what the minimum required distances are from the property lines. So,
where are we?
Page 32.
Number 6.
Yeah, item 6. Garages and carports.
so the question brought up about somebody putting a tent in their side yard, that would be considered a temporary accessory structure. As long as it conforms to the code, you can generally have a temporary accessory structure in place without a permit for up to 18 months, and then it would need to be removed. This particular structure is not what would be considered a temporary structure by nature of how it is constructed and how it's bonded to the building itself. Any other questions? Board? Thank you.
Discussion.
Don't we have to talk about it? Yeah. We are doing it right now. So is there any discussion among the board? Any other questions? Any comments?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think the question we have to look at, and the only question really that is in front of us is pretty narrow. And that is this structure a violation of our code or not? I'm so sorry that the appellant has been through so much red tape. I mean, it's Kafkaesque what he has been through. And I'm disappointed that he's had that experience. At the same time, I don't think any of that changes whether or not he's in violation, whether or not the structure complies with the municipal code. I'm concerned that there are a lot of other issues dancing around that might be of interest maybe to a different body or a different board. But the one in front of us is whether or not this particular structure violates the municipal code. I think it's pretty clear that it does. I understand all the other arguments, but there are setback requirements and there always have been. It sounds like a garage or a carport is not an accessory structure that would be somehow exempt from those setback requirements. And so I think despite all the unfortunate surroundings in this case, we have a structure that does not comply with the city code.
I think I'm in agreement with you. I think and as you said, it's unfortunate. It's, we can feel sympathy for the situation, but sympathy is not our job. The code is our job. And so to your point, and then I think the whole definition of is it an accessory dwelling or a carport doesn't matter, because I just heard, we just looked it up that even the accessory dwelling has a setback requirement based on the percentage of the lot. So either way, I agree. I think there's violation here.
Any other comments? Can I get a motion?
See how we have to read this.
With page 16.
Thanks for a motion. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that the structure is in violation of the current municipal code, and that we uphold the citations.
Can I get a second? Second.
With apologies.
Vice Chair Parker,
Aye.
Board Member Kareem.
Aye.
Board Member Heim,
Aye.
Board Member Herman,
Aye.
and Chair Basilic.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to adopt the resolution upholding the administrative decision.
So the city will be in contact with you regarding the fine. Thank you very much.
Next steps.
Both tickets?
Excuse me?
Both
Tickets or the first one ticket?
Both
We
tickets,
got
they'll
the
be
second
talked.
ticket waiting
They'll-
for our hearing.
Yeah. The city will talk to you about both tickets
What's the city or code?
for the code enforcement. Thank you. I need to take a break.
We'll take a 5-minute break and return at 7 o'clock.
Ready? Yeah. So the appeal of the administrative decision that Ethel Sepperson is permanently ineligible to operate a vacation rental in the city of Palm Springs and the administrative fine of $5,000 for operating an unregistered vacation rental property located at 300 South Potencio Road, Palm Springs, California. Sorry, I read your part. Next is item 6 concerning the property at 300 Potencio Drive. Is an appeal of $5,000 administrative decision that Ethel Sorensen is permanently ineligible to operate a vacation rental in the city of Palm Springs. Board Secretary, please ensure the city staff and the appellant understand that the testimony is under oath.
We do have signed affidavits from city staff and appellant. They are both in person. Anyone on Zoom who does desire to to testify under this appeal hearing, under the laws of perjury, if you choose to speak, you hereby accept and acknowledge that your testimony shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Staff, please present your report.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, board members, city staff, and public with us this evening. My name is Patrick Clifford with the Department of Special Program Compliance, and we oversee the vacation rental program here in the city of Palm Springs. Before you is a staff report for the property located at 300 South Potencio Road. It was found that this property was advertised as a vacation rental without a valid vacation rental certificate, with a violation date of April 6, 2024. The code officer that did investigate the property is here via Zoom. Included in the staff reports are the elements that led to the issuance of the violation. And inevitably, citation AB 0696 was issued in the amount of $5,000 to the property owner, Ethel Severson, who's the property owner listed on title. Again, I'd like to invite the code officer that investigated the property for further testimony, and I believe Code Officer Whitaker is on Zoom. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Can you just state your name again?
Yes. Hi, so good evening. My name is Jason Whitaker. I'm a code compliance officer with the city of Palm Springs. On Friday, April 5th, 2024, while conducting a review of available rental listings on the web-based booking platform Airbnb.com, I discovered an advertisement in the historic tennis club neighborhood of Palm Springs titled Villa Nane 2, which can be found in attachment number 5 of the staff report. While reviewing the advertisement, it stated that the 3-bedroom home was being offered for up to 6 guests and a minimum 6-night stay per the booking calendar, with additional verbiage indicating a 1-week minimum, which can also be found in attachment number 5, page 26 of the staff report. I was unable to find a city ID number on the advertisement as required for a registered vacation rental property, so I reviewed the photos contained within the ad and was able to positively identify the property address as 300 South Potencio Road. Upon review of the city's vacation rental registration records, I confirmed that the property identified did not hold a vacation rental registration certificate. I then sent a message in the afternoon of April 5th, 2024 via the Airbnb.com contact host feature, which can be found in attachment number 6 of the staff report, inquiring about a short-term stay for the dates between April 18th through April 24th, 2024. My message stated, hi Joey, we will be in PS 418 through 424, and I wanted to ask how far the airport is from the house. We are trying to decide whether to rent a car for the trip or just use Uber. Also, is there an extra fee to heat the pool, or is it usually warm enough in April? Thank you. And then I added the following comment. Sorry, meant to say hi, Corky. My autocorrect changed to Joey, LOL. I received from the host, Corky, the following message, which stated, hi, Jace. The house is a 10-minute Uber away from the airport. Everything in town is walkable, and there are lots of bike rentals available. A car would be useful during your stay, but the rental situation at the airport is chaotic. The pool isn't heated and is subject to the whims of the weather gods. I sent the following follow-up message to the host, in which I stated, okay, sounds good. Are those dates still available? And in parentheses, I indicated April 18th through the 24th, to which he responded with yes. Subsequently, after receiving the last message from the host, I was sent an invitation to book a short-term stay for the requested dates of April 18th through 24th of 2024. Also, in review of the appellant's written statement, which can be found in attachment number 3, pages 12 through 13 of this evening's hearing, the appellant statement indicated that they were testing the market. And I just want to add, they were testing the market, yet they facilitated a short-term stay by sending me an invite to book. Also, they had mentioned that they had planned to apply for a vacation rental permit before renting the home. This also is an indication that they were aware of the City of Palm Springs short-term vacation rental program. So as a result of my findings contained within the advertisement, the host's responses to my inquiry, as well as the host invitation to book for a 6-night stay, I found the property located at 300 South Potencio Road was in violation of PSMC 5.25.040A, operating a vacation rental without a vacation rental registration certificate, and I issued administrative citation number AB 0696 to the property owner on title Ethel Severson. This will conclude my testimony. I will hand it back over to Patrick, and I'm also available for any questions you may have for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Code Officer Whitaker. I do just want to clarify 2 points for the board is that you see in the staff report, I believe we do a list that the municipal code that was violated was Palm Springs Municipal Code 5.25040, which states that the operation of a vacation rental or home share interest without a vacation rental certificate is prohibited. Additionally, there is an administrative regulation dated July of 2017, which is also available in our municipal code as a web attachment, where it defines a little bit more of what the city views as operation, including advertisement of the property means any web-based advertising, hosting platform, print media, bulletin, signage, radio, and television, or on any other medium for the purposes of promoting interest in, testing the market for, or soliciting the occupancy of a period of 28 consecutive days or less. And that's an administrative regulation dated July of 2017. Thank you. Okay, are there any questions from the board? Okay. At this time, I'd like to open the appeal hearing. The appellant is invited to speak up to 10 minutes. Any members of the public who desire to speak at this appeal hearing shall have up to 3 minutes to speak. If any member of the public testifies, the appellant will be invited to provide a rebuttal for up to 2 minutes. Appellant, please state your name for the record, and if you can begin your time.
You just press that button and turn it green.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Severson. I'm the son of Ethel Severson. Before we go any further, Ethel was my mother. She passed away last month. The house was built by my grandfather in 1963. And we had never gone outside the family with the house at all until my mother fell ill in early January of this year. We then decided that to defray medical expenses that we needed to generate some cash flow. I talked to a couple of companies here in town, Acme and one other one, don't recall the name, to get an idea about what we could be looking at in the way of leasing the house out, maybe on a long-term or because Coachella was coming up, I was told maybe get a pretty good revenue from a house that is we're always being asked to go on the Modernism Week tour, things like that. It's an iconic place. Urban legend is that it's the Sinatra house, but it's not. It's S for Severson, and so that's how that all came about. I asked my son to explore the websites that we could put it on while I was talking to the host companies. They hit me with 30 and 40% loads on the rental income, which I thought was a little outrageous, so I decided to explore the possibilities online. And you just read that 2017 thing about exploring the options. Well, that's what we were doing. We put a high number on the house for short-term rental. I got one call. Turns out it was Officer Whitaker. We never rented the house. House still hasn't been rented, and now my mother's passed. So the family is now deciding on what to do, whether we're going to keep the house or sell it and distribute to the heirs. So it's kind of ironic that the only offer to stay that I got was from from somebody that had no intention of paying any money to stay at the house. So then I got the $5,000 fine, which sort of put the cherry on the cake of the whole thing. I never intended to violate the code here. We've been Palm Springs residents for 60 some years. And before we rented the place out, I was going to come down and fill out the application for the permit. I don't live here. I live up at the beach. My wife and I come down and use the house, and now it's just always been a family house. So now we find ourselves in a situation where we've got no income off the house. My mother's dead, and now they got a $5,000 fine for talking to Officer Whitaker, basically. And that just seems maybe not illegal, but certainly not in the spirit of the law. Here, I got it. For whatever filing that's the death certificate. So that's where we are in this situation.
Anything else? Okay. I have a question.
Yes.
May I?
Sure.
First of all, condolences on your mother's passing.
Thanks.
It seems like the timing was all sort of mumbled in there together, so my condolences to you. Did you do any research or wait a minute, let me back up. In the ad, I think the officer was conversing with Corky. Is that you?
That's my nickname, yeah.
You're Corky, okay. Did you do any research before you did that, like on the Palm Springs website, short-term rental website to?
Just my
who was
conversations with the rental companies, and they told me I would need a permit before I rented the house.
Mhm.
So I didn't, when I talked to Mitch about that, he said, well, it takes 30 or 60 days to get the permit. I wasn't aware of that, and I did not research that. I thought it was something that I could come down, fill out the papers, and be in compliance.
I'm just curious because the reason I asked that question, have you done any research? Because the ad was very specific about understanding about Palm Springs rules and regulations, particularly those related to outdoor noise.
Yes.
And limits. So
Well,
it sounds like you did some research.
Well, no, we've lived in the neighborhood for 60 years.
Okay.
And like Corokia and the Spencers and everything, I talk to people all the time that, particularly with the Airbnb crowd, that they get people in there that have parties and over at the tennis club area. So I'm very familiar with noise in the neighborhood.
Yeah, okay.
So,
okay, I was just
and
curious.
I know that enforcement is strong in the city, so I wanted to make sure that people were aware of that.
Okay, thank you. And now you understand from the earlier testimony that the city considers managing a short-term rental advertising. So as soon as that ad goes up, you're considered managing a short-term rental. I just want to make sure you understood the difference there.
Well,
Okay,
I understand the language, yeah. I
gotcha.
know.
Okay, no other questions for me.
Any other questions from the board? Or
I offer my condolences as well.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry that this is happening now. I do have kind of a technical question. Since your mother passed, is her estate being administered locally, and is the property currently in the name of the estate? Who is technically the owner of the property?
The property is owned in a trust. My
As always?
mother's living trust.
Okay, and has that been true for some time?
Yes.
That's my only question, thank you.
Okay,
That's a good point because my mother never had anything to do with the website.
yeah. Unfortunately, we've been down this road before, so it doesn't matter that your mom didn't know about it. It's just the fact that you were representing the property and it still falls under her or the trust's responsibility. So it's kind of a double-edged sword on that one. But you did mention one thing, and that was you knew you needed to have a permit in order to operate. And so unfortunately, you were operating when you didn't know it was Code Officer Whitaker, but you were operating the property without a permit.
An extended invite.
And you extended an invite, so you already kind of knew
But
that
at
you
that-
were
yeah,
operating the property without.
And I understand that argument. It's a pretty fine line on operational issues.
Yeah, the city of Palm Springs has very strict rules about operations and.
Well, I know that now.
Yeah.
And I know that Officer Whitaker probably wasn't gonna put up a deposit either.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Discussion.
Yeah. So I'm gonna open up the discussion.
Just for the record, Chair, could you ask if there's any public comments?
Yeah. Is there any public comments at the current time?
There's no registered public commenters.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for understanding. I'm just gonna open up the discussion among the board now.
You said we've been through similar
Yeah.
situation before.
So, the question that you asked and just for clarification, because have experience on the board and with these type of situations. It doesn't have to be the homeowner that is representing the property for rent. It can be a son, an agent that's representing the property. But according to the city, it still falls on the responsibility of the home regardless. So in this case, whether it's a son that's representing it or an estate representing it, the homeowner still bears the responsibility.
And I understand that. But but the violation has been issued to Ethel Severson.
Yeah, and it's an estate, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna refer this to our legal counsel. If you wanna just
Yeah,
explain.
I'm just curious how that works.
Sure, so when there's a violation, it falls to the legal owner of the property. And so that's why it says Ethel Severson. And I understand there's a trust involved, but code probably, looked at the property record, so she was the legal owner, and that's who they issued the violation.
It's the last attachment in our file is the property profile from the county recorder. And that's where they pick up the ownership of the property. That's where they got her name, says her name on there.
Okay, and I understand that. But who owes the fine? Who pays the fine? The trust?
That's kind of beyond the
Patrick wants to answer that.
Oh.
You wanna?
If appropriate, I may, sorry about that. We issued the citation to Ethel Severson. Usually if there was a trust that is holding title, it would list the trust, or if it was an LLC that was holding title, it would list the LLC and we would cite the LLC or we would cite the trust. In this situation, we cited Ethel Severson. And that only we did not cite the trust and we would not go to try to collect from the trust. In this situation, unfortunately, condolences. Ethel Severson is responsible for the citation, and we would not be attempting to collect from the trust, because we did not cite the trust.
So Patrick, have you had that situation come up before with the person you cited is now deceased?
From the years I have enforced, we have not, that is under my recollection.
Okay. So as a practical matter, I think the city probably just needs to work with Ethel's son. Probably, to ask for him to ask for distribution from the trust or otherwise raise the money to pay on behalf of his mother.
Does she have funds outside of the trust?
No. But again, that's something that is
It's
in the weeds. It's,
yeah,
it's not something that you need to resolve.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
We just are working within the boundaries of what we're looking at and what the city's regulations regarding the codes are. And based on that, we make our decision.
okay. Well, in that case, I move that we,
Is there, before you do that, is there any other discussion?
oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that it's unfortunate, right, but based on the circumstances, but the violation occurred as soon as the ad went up. It's considered managing a short-term rental. And then the invitation was extended to book. In my mind, it's unfortunate, but in my mind, there's a violation here.
So we've seen this situation play over many times. It's not the intention of the person that caused the violation, but it happens. And as David said, once you even put out on the internet, I'm thinking about renting this property, it's assumed that you're advertising the property, and once you do that, you're in violation of the code.
I understand.
Okay. Any other discussion? Can I get a motion
I'll make a motion
to
to uphold the violation
any?
and the fine.
You would turn your mic on.
So, my apologies. I make a motion to uphold the violation and the fine of $5,000.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay.
Board Member Herman,
Aye.
Board Member Hein,
Aye.
Board Member Corinne,
Hey,
Vice Chair Parker,
Aye.
and Chair Basili.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to adopt the resolution upholding the administrative decision.
Thank you very much. The city will be in touch with you. And this doesn't exclude you from renting the property for 30 days. You just can't rent it for a short term right now. Thank you very much. All right. Is that certain? Do you read the?
No, you can just next item.
Okay.
Yep.
Next item. Item 7 concerning the property at 6175 Montecito Drive, unit number 4. It is an appeal of the 5,000 administrative decision that Mark Hirsch and Robert Hirsch, excuse me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, is permanently ineligible to operate a vacation rental in the city of Palm Springs. Board Secretary, please ensure that the city staff and the appellant understand that their testimony is under oath.
We do have signed affidavits from city staff that's in person. The appellant is on Zoom. We desire to testify under this appeal hearing, under the laws of perjury. If you choose to speak, you hereby accept and acknowledge that your testimony shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Staff, please present your report.
Yes, good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, board members, city staff, public joining us on Zoom this evening. My name is Patrick Clifford with the Department of Special Program Compliance. We oversee the vacation rental program here in the city of Palm Springs. And before you this evening is a staff report for the property located at 6175 Montecito Drive, unit number 4. It was found that the owners operated a vacation rental without a valid vacation rental certificate with a date of violation of April 11th, 2024. In the staff report, there are elements that led to the issuance of the violation, specifically 2 advertisements found, one found on Airbnb, and I believe another one found on VRBO. The code officer that investigated the property is on a Zoom call as well. and can provide further testimony, and I'd like to invite the code officer to provide that testimony. Thank you.
So good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, city staff, and members of the public present for tonight's hearing. My name is Jason Whitaker, and I'm a code compliance officer for the city of Palm Springs. On Thursday, April 11th, 2024, while conducting a review of available rental listings on the web-based booking platform Airbnb.com, I discovered an advertisement in the Mountain Shadows community of Palm Springs titled Palm Springs Paradise, which can be found in attachment number 5 of the staff report. While reviewing the advertisement, it stated that the 3-bedroom condo was being offered for up to 6 guests and a minimum 5-night stay per the booking calendar. I was unable to find a city ID number on the advertisement as required for a registered vacation rental property, so I reviewed the photos contained within the advertisement and was able to positively identify the property address as 6175 North Montecito Drive, Unit number 4. Upon review of the city's vacation rental registration records, I confirmed the property identified did not hold a vacation rental registration certificate, and also noticed that there were some guest reviews on the advertisement, 2 in particular. They were indicative of short-term guest stays. Those can be found at attachment number 5, page 41 of the staff report. And as a result of those guest reviews, I began an investigation into the property. I sent a message on April 11th, 2024 via the Airbnb.com contact host feature, which can be found in attachment number 6, page 44 of the staff report, inquiring about a short-term stay for the dates between May 9th through May 14th of 2024. My message stated, "Hi Carla, we are traveling to Palm Springs for the week of May 9th through the 14th. I wanted to ask how far your place is from the airport as we are trying to determine whether to rent a car or just use Uber. Thanks." I received a response from the host Carla in which she stated, "Hi, our place is 5 minutes, if that, from the airport." Subsequently, after the host response, I received an invitation to book a short-term stay for the requested dates of May 9th through May 14th of 2024. While investigating this property, I also discovered an additional advertisement on vrbo.com, which can be found in attachment number 7 of the staff report. I performed a thorough search of the guest reviews left on the vrbo.com advertisement and was able to determine that 14 of the guest reviews reflected short-term stays at this property, and they took place between February 2021 and March of 2024. These reviews can also be found in attachment number 7, pages 63 through 80 of the staff report. As a result of my findings contained within the advertisement, the host responses to my inquiry, as well as the host invitation to book a 5-night stay, I found that this property located at 6175 North Montecito Drive, number 4, was in violation of PSMC 5.25.040A, operating a vacation rental without a vacation rental registration certificate, and I issued an administrative citation number AB0699 to the property owners on title, Mark and Robert Hershey. This will conclude my testimony. I will hand it back over to Patrick, and I'm also available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Officer Whitaker, and I have no further. Okay. Are there any questions from the board for Patrick?
None for me.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. At this time, I'd like to open the appeal hearing. The appellant is invited to speak for up to 10 minutes. Any members of the public who desire to speak at this appeal hearing shall have up to 3 minutes to speak. If any member of the public testifies, the appellant will be invited to provide a rebuttal for up to 2 minutes. Is the appellant online?
Yes, yes.
The appellant, please state your name for the record, and you can begin your time.
Members of the board and city council, my name is Mark Hershey, located in Vancouver, British Columbia. In 2017, I purchased the property as a vacation rental property or not rental property, it was a vacation property for my elderly parents and for myself, with a young family. It was a destination place that, neither of us had went to and automatically fell in love with it. At the time, that we purchased it, the previous owner, who was a Palm Springs resident, advised us that, she, had, my understanding, of complete negligence and, stupidity, I guess, was that she had set up a rental, like a grandfather rental is what she explained to me, and had 3 guests that travel once a year to stay at the property. Long term, they were always staying there for 45 days or so because they were all Canadians. And they were, I guess, snowbirds that want to come down there, and we thought that'd be a great opportunity to have to offset some of the costs. Following those rentals, we only use it for ourselves, you know, and I mention this because, you know, back in March of 2020, we were denied to be able to come in there. COVID happened, and you know, as the city code compliance mentioned, there was a review already starting in 2021. Why? Because due to COVID, we had no Canadians that were doing long-term rentals. Ourselves couldn't rent out there, and we had HOV fees and fees to be paid for. Again, it's my ignorance. I didn't think about codes or anything else. I run a business in Vancouver. I have, you know, friends that have rental properties in Vancouver that have stated, hey, if you post on Airbnb, which was never my intention at all to be posting and advertising any kind of stays on VRBO or Airbnb, but due to COVID, we were forced to. And they said, oh, when you sign up, you know, the Airbnb will provide you with all the information that you need to follow. Now, this is my first property I've ever purchased in the States. I just followed suit. I thought, okay, well, the previous owner had something in place, and Mountain Shadows already, you know, has a short-term rental guarantee or some thing with the city allowed, and I should have contacted the city of Palm Springs because for myself to penalize my family due to my shortcomings, you know, we visit the outdoor zoos, we visit the local churches. My foster children have been in your local TV news on an Indigenous event because they're Indigenous children. Palm Springs is like a second home. It's not like a vacation place that we like to go. At the beginning of June, I received a letter in the mail for a cease and desist from the city, obviously violating the short-term policies in place. I've listened to the argument with the previous gentleman and his loss of his mother. I understand how strict your guys' codes are. I would be too. I completely get it. It's a failure on my behalf, and I can understand the policies that go in place. When this came up to us, this became a shock to myself and my family, as we would never do anything to affect a penalty. As a Christian family, why would I go ahead and try and cheat the system and not apply for a city permit? It was more of a case of, and I want to throw this against the board. I really think because there's so many rentals happening in Palm Springs that there should be a lot more advertisement to say, have you registered for short-term rental? I don't see it anytime I go there. I don't see it in the downtown area. I don't see it anywhere. And I feel like that should be something that should be notified in any kind of community compound like Mountain Shadows, where a lot of rentals are happening in that place and nothing is notified. It doesn't sit on their city boards, or, you know, when they're doing their reviews and agendas and AGM meetings, nothing is ever mentioned. So it's to me, it's very unfortunate, because I can see that probably every month you're dealing with someone like myself that's sitting here in front of you guys going, oh, well, I had no idea, which I didn't. But as soon as I was aware, I wanted to file an appeal. I changed all the settings to 30-day rentals. I wanted to make sure that everything was in compliance, because to be faced with a $5,000 fine is detrimental to my family. At the end of the day, it's there's a massive economic downturn. I've recently had medical expenses for my wife, which, I mean, there was a death for the elderly lady, and I get it. You guys are basing everything on facts and not emotion, which is understandable, and that's why you are on the board. So I just wanted to everybody to please consider this appeal based on the facts. I personally present to you that from 2021 to 2024, backtrack it and make me pay for all of those years of missed fines. I'm not trying to get out of it. I just feel like I shouldn't be like for a first offense to be hit with a $5,000 fine and like no notice. It's not like the city and the code of compliance are notifying me saying, hey, we've caught you on Airbnb and VRBO. You have your first fine and here, and this needs to be changed. You are penalized or suspended for X amount of time. And once you show that you have followed compliance, you should be back again and be allowed to. It's a first offense for a young family that's buying their first vacation property in the United States of California. So for me, I'll take the past dues of everything, but to be cut off on short-term rentals and the fine, to me, I appeal it. I don't find how that is making Palm Springs a better place. It now puts such a sour taste in my mouth to want to come visit a beautiful city that we love. I'm flying there Friday for a wedding. So, you know, or I would have loved to be there in person to meet you all. And thank you for upholding everything that you guys do, but that's where I come from. And I almost up my time. I don't want to keep rambling on very well.
No, thank you very much. There any questions from the board?
After you.
Go ahead.
I saw you.
Mr. Hershey, I do have a couple questions. One is according to the ad, Palm Springs Paradise, that was placed on Airbnb. It says hosted by Carla. Who's Carla?
My wife, she usually runs the ads, but I'm typically, because we were running through medical issues and IVF, and we have 3 young children under 6, as anyone who has children can imagine, she was unable to really manage it. And so I've been managing it as well too.
So no representative or managing company on the ground here in Palm Springs?
No, just a cleaner.
Okay, and who did you purchase the property from?
A lovely lady by the name of Jojo, and I really forget her last name off the top of my head, but she has a fantastic hair salon, if she hasn't retired yet, that's in downtown Palm Springs.
Did you use a realtor when you purchased the property?
We did, yes.
And you and the realtor had no conversations about short-term vacation rentals or any of the regulations that the city has?
Not at all, because we weren't, at the time, Jojo was never doing short-term rentals. It was, we purchased it in, I believe, October or November of 2017. And by January, she had long-term rentals, 3 long-term rentals that were just in from January till April. And then we stopped it to have our families and my father go and come down and visit, and didn't do anything until, because she already had those pre-booked. So those rentals were in there, but those to me weren't short term. They were over 30-day rentals, and there was nothing to be discussed about. We had no anticipation of renting it.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, David.
Mr. Hershey, thank you. Actually 2 follow-up questions. I noticed in your appeal, you mentioned that during the pandemic, unable to travel to the US, you listed your home on both of those agencies for long-term rentals with a minimum stay of 21 days. But 21 days would have been in violation of the code, because it's 28 days or less is considered short-term rental. So I'm just curious, did you actually have people for the 21 days?
We did, and that's what I mean. It's on my fault of what the definition of short-term rentals was. I always thought short-term rentals was like 5 days, like anything like under 5 days. And that's when I found out about the child, oh yeah, like talking to another owner, oh, we rented out for 5 days. You gotta be kidding me. I've been always renting it out for like at least 21 days, if not more. So.
And then one other question, you mentioned that your HOA, I think in Mountain Shadows, allows short-term rentals. Was there any information in their CCNRs during your purchase? They give you a big book of all of their rules and regulations within the complex that said anything about, you know, maybe checking with the city to see what the requirements were?
I think so, but I also think that if someone's handed a vacuum cleaner with a 300-page manual, are you gonna read all 300 pages? Probably not. So again, it's my negligence.
I understand.
Really accept it.
Okay, no other questions?
Um, I always say this to folks, you know, when you're renting something and you're taking money, you're doing a transaction, you're running a business. And with a business, you have to either have a license or in this case, a permit to do it. And unfortunately, folks like yourself, you get tripped up and you don't realize that you have to get a permit with the city. We are, the city of Palm Springs is very strict on short-term rentals and permits. And unfortunately, a lot of folks like yourself get tripped up on it. But if you think about it, you said you're a businessman. You run a business. You're taking money from someone. You're running a business. You have to have some sort of either a license or a permit to do it. And I know sometimes people don't think about it because they think, oh, it's my house, I can do what I want with it. But you know, there's taxes to be paid to the city every time that property is rented. And so it's unfortunate that it happens this way, but and then the city does have, when you jump on the city site, there is a section in there about short-term rentals, what is required on that. So unfortunately, you didn't have a chance to look at that, but if you did, you would have noticed that you would have gotten to, you would have needed to apply for a permit on the property. So,
Which the day I got the letter and logged into the city of Palm Springs for the first time, I said, oh, here it is, and I went and applied right away, because I was like, how can I get out of this? And I have the email proof, and you probably do too. It was more of an answer saying, sorry, you can't do that.
understand. Any other questions?
Not another question, but just, I just want to make a comment to you, Mr. Hershey, just because I can feel your despair. You probably heard our board chair in the last case remind the appellant that regardless of our decision here, regardless of our decision, this does not prevent you from renting it long-term. So 29 days or longer is totally fine. This is specifically the short-term rental issue.
Yes, thank you. I understand that.
Any other comment? Okay. Is there any comments from the
public?
From the public?
We do not have any public speakers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. I'm gonna open this up now for discussion with the board. Any comments?
I'll just say it, you know, sort of what I was alluding to him. It's, again, this is unfortunate. We can feel for him in his position. The fact remains that a violation occurred, and as we all know, we're granted very little leeway, and we have to go by the code. And that's my comment.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move that we uphold the fine and suspension.
Can I get a second? Second.
Vice Chair Parker,
Aye.
Board Member Kareem,
Aye.
Board Member Hein,
Aye.
Board Member Herman,
Aye.
and Chair Basili.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to adopt the resolution upholding the administrative decision.
So the city will be in touch with you, but as Vice Chair Parker had mentioned, it doesn't exclude you from renting it for 28 days or longer on the property. Thank you very much for your time. Okay. So this portion of the meeting is set aside for general comments, announcements, requests of the staff and or other issues of concern from members of the Administrative Appeal Board.
You guys have nothing, then we move on.
We have nothing? Okay.
Did you have something for him that you were gonna ask earlier when we started the meeting?
Well, yes, and there's been a little bit of side talk about this,
Okay.
but maybe you want to tell us about the recent decision of one of the California Courts of Appeal. That is not, it's not in our bailiwick, but it's a kind of a hot issue, I would think, among some of the desert cities.
So there was a decision that was unpublished that came out of the Superior Court, County of Riverside, their appellate division. And it had to do with short-term rental advertisement. And they have a high fine, just like Palm Springs does. And the court found in the appellant's favor. I think they said basically the fine is too high. So I'm aware that there's kind of a,
Unconstitutionally.
yes, and so there's been a,
Violation.
so there's a lot of social media right now saying, you know, everyone go to your cities and appeal with the decision and everything. As a legal matter, the opinion means nothing to you because it's unpublished.
Right.
And if it's unpublished, it means it can't be relied upon by any court, by any board, by any commission, anywhere, period. Because it's unpublished. Right. And so it's not something that you need to worry about.
Okay.
But even if it was published, it would not impart on us until there was a change to our municipal code, right? I mean, we still go by the code unless there's a change.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Until someone sues the city, takes the city to court, gets a favorable decision, proceed the way you have it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. This time is set aside for the city attorney to update the board on important matters initiated by the staff or previously requested by the board. It's Maldonado, is it?
Albert Maldonado.
Maldonado, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I just want to add that for the education of the new board members, there was a memo distributed, I don't know how long ago, might be good to June 26, 2023. And I think right for the benefit of the new board members, excuse me, I'll have distribute that again. Okay. Because it gives you kind of the legal chapter and verse of how the violations of the short-term rental ordinance, it's a strict liability offense. Intent does not matter. The liability falls to the property owner. So even in a situation where a property owner has a lease for someone and the person that holds the lease hires a company to put it on Airbnb and they didn't follow the regulations, the property owner is going to be responsible, even if the property owner did not know that the tenant was doing that. So it's a strict liability with offense. You have no discretion to provide an exception under any circumstance. And so I just want to make that very clear. And again, I think for the benefit of everyone, I'm going to ask who normally covers these meetings for those that are new, I'm just joining in tonight, to distribute that memo again for all of you.
Thank you. That's a great idea.
I have a copy of that. I'll email it out to you.
Thank you.
On an unrelated note, though, the case tonight where the property owner is deceased.
Can we talk about
And I
this?
know we have to have, can we talk about this? Okay. Well, I know there's been a violation. But the question is, and I'm thinking like a lawyer, if there's a judgment against a dead person, like a $100,000 judgment, it is paid by the estate. It is not paid by their representative or anyone else who shows up on their behalf. It's off our table now and it's gonna go where it goes, but I think the city needs to take another look at who might the record property owner be now? And maybe think about reissuing a citation. I don't know. To me, that was just bizarre that that the homeowner is deceased and yet is now ordered to pay a fine.
Well, Patrick, I don't have the record in front of me. Who was listed on record for that property?
She was.
She was as an individual.
So
but
I think, I hear what you're saying in my, we're making guesses here, but I presume she passed. Her son or the family or the state has probably now already processed the trust and changed the ownership of the home, but I don't know.
What they didn't do was they didn't update the records. So they didn't update the records, the fact that she transferred the property from her individual name into a trust, which is what it should have been. So, but ultimately it falls back on it's her, but the trust exists based on the property. So they're gonna go after the trust either way. They're not gonna go after the individual. They're gonna go after the trust. And so, I mean, if I'm speaking correctly, I mean, it doesn't matter if she's, but it doesn't matter.
2 points. I put my home in the trust and I sent the deed. I had an attorney send the deed and rewrite the deed. It's now in my family trust. Technically, I don't even know. I did that on my house.
Right.
So this is just timing. It's just.
I know, but even if she was still alive and incapacitated, he's saying it doesn't really make a difference. The homeowner, whoever is paying the homeowner's bill, in this case, her son inherits the property, I would imagine. You guys are the attorney.
Well, it just becomes a lien, just like any other lien on the property.
They don't lien the property.
Well, I mean, it's not a lien. Well, it can be a lien if someone wants to put it as
If it's a
lien, but
judgment,
but it's a
lien
judgment.
against a dead I mean,
Yes.
a dead person is not no longer a legal entity.
Yeah, I think you're going too deep into
And
it.
I think you're right.
Yeah. We don't need to go that deep.
And we heard Patrick say, they're not gonna collect,
No,
right?
well, I'm just saying,
yeah, they
this
could.
could come up again. If I'm that guy and I talk to a lawyer,
Right.
they're gonna go, you don't have, this is null and void.
Well, the city could technically, if
I think
if
his
I'm-
bigger issue was the fact that they can't lease it out anymore for short-term rentals.
Right,
I don't think he
that's-
cares about the fine.
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
think so.
I
either.
would make that
Okay, and
assumption.
that's
Yeah,
probably right, but I'm just making a point because I just thought, I thought.
Well,
that
no,
was weird.
technically,
Yeah.
the city could file a judgment against the property for the $5,000. And then it becomes an issue with the estate. I mean, you have to go through however they
Yeah, and
want to
it's their
register.
problem and not ours. I
Yeah,
get that.
you're thinking too much about it.
I am.
We have to work within the
I
realm of
am,
what we need to do.
I didn't take a nap.
Just remember that stamp, that rubber stamp. Thank you for being patient because I was all over the place
You
today.
did
so
great.
sorry.
Great.
I'll read my script for next time. Thank you. I got thrown in.
I think you have to ask her if she has anything. She
Yes.
just has to decide.
Next meeting is August 28th at 5:30 PM. And again, if you can't make it, just let me know and we'll ask the alternate if they're available. And then I'll email the memo that council was just speaking of. And that's it.
Could you also re-email
I
out the
will.
rest of the meeting dates for the year?
Yes, I did.
You did already?
Yeah, to yes, I did.
Ah, you're so efficient. Wow.
Do you need a copy
I
of it as
don't.
well?
On the
I
website.
wrote down. I was.
Oh, I did it for them. Yep.
Exactly.
All right,
But I
are we
did get
adjourned?
it now, but-
You have to adjourn the meeting.
Yes, oh, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for.